Hello everyone, this is my discussion on channel your files and your features. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Sanford. I am a lead developer at Dematic. Been there about 8 years now. Recently I joined a community outreach program there assisting with first robotics related tasks. We do scholarships and events and various activities with that. Um, Before I got into that, though, I've been a coach and a mentor for the last 6 years um, for a elementary Lego League team, and I also do some software support for the high school team. Having said that, being into the robotics and whatnot, this year I ventured and got myself one of these little robot lawnmowers. It's been pretty fun to have around, um, and it does a pretty good job. So I've been pretty happy with it. If you have questions about that later, it's pretty fun to talk about, so let me know. Um, so channels, what are channels? Essentially, these guys provide access control to your extension. So you can allow or deny certain people to certain portions of your extension, features, products, whatever it is you need to control. For example, um, you could have multiple extensions or whatever, so you could have all of your users as a group have all the same extensions, but then each one of them might see different things in each extension based on who they are and what role you've assigned them. The channel feature uses a web UI, myconfigure.com, for administrating these users in these various channels that you set up. So the first type of channels we'll talk about are catalog channels. And these ones are mostly automatic. So you use Catalog Creator to turn this ability on and off. The default selection is all, meaning basically everyone gets your catalog. However, you can flip this over to be members only. And if you do that, then it will restrict your catalog to be used by certain users. So this channel um, is created automatically for you. So if you had a whole bunch of catalogs in your profile, um, one will get created for each one of your catalogs. And then it's just up to you to um, decide who's in each one of those. So we'll show that off in a demo in a minute. Okay, so here we go. We're going to open up Catalog Creator. Then we'll go right over to the Publish tab in the Catalog Creator, and I'm not even going to open up a catalog at this point. You find your profile, Dematic for me. Open that guy up. It'll be there in just a second. And then towards the middle top of the page there, you see the Publish selection is set to all, and that's where you would flip it to members only. The demo is not going to show me switching that over because a lot of Dematic users will probably get mad at me. Yeah, so you can toggle that on, and once you do, you would be able to configure users to be in those various channels. So the next one we will talk about is custom channels. Custom channels are created by the development team, meaning you're going to have to write some code. And the code will basically implement some rules for what you want to hide or show or whatever for that channel. Basically, you can control anything you need to UI-wise, so buttons, libraries, properties, whatever. The way you do this is with a key value pair. We'll look at the code later, but basically, if you determine that your user has this key value pair in their user profile, when you get that, then they're in, and they can use whatever features you have set up. Okay, so how do we create these guys? You, again, use myconfigure.com to manage this. So you first browse to your extension, and then you go to the license and channels section. We'll show a demo on this in just a minute. Fill in a channel name. This is what your administrator is going to use to find your channel. So you want it to be a good name, and you also want it to line up with what you use in the code. Because if you say, hey, I'm making a change to channel X so that users can do this, and then in the website you call it Z, then that's going to be a problem. They're not going to find that very easily. So we mentioned the key value pair earlier, so that's the part that's in the code that you want to name to line up with the name of the channel itself. You're going to add some users to that channel once you've got this prepared. There is a checkbox to apply to all users. A good idea of when to do that would be you roll out a beta feature, you assign like 10 users to it, and they're beta testing your tool. When your beta is done, you determine that it's safe to use for everybody. You can just check the box, and now everybody automatically has that feature without deploying more code. It's kind of handy. And I had to include this last bullet, otherwise Adam might get upset at me. So don't forget to save. So this is one of the very few screens on my configure where you have to hit a save button, otherwise your changes won't apply. And here's what that but here's what that page looks like when you're adding one of these channels. So the name at the top, the key value pair, adding users, apply to all, and save. So I made a little demo of what that would look like if you're on the website. I'm on my extension page already here. I'm going to go click over on license and channels. Here you can see the list of channels in that drop-down box. So you can either add a new one and click open, or you can do the drop-down list and edit an existing one. In our case, we're going to create a new one. So we'll open that up, and we'll see that same blank page to fill this in. You can see I've done some of this before, so the IntelliSense is going to bring in a bunch of values I've entered before. And of course, it's going to be a cool demo, so we're going to name this Mike's Cool Channel. And you can see my key is very close to my channel name. And for my value, I put I'm in cool just to show that you can do whatever you want. Um, in real life in Dematic, we use true for everything. It really doesn't matter what you put there, just as long as you make sure your code lines up with it. And then at the bottom there, I put my name in and click the add button to actually get into the list. I'm not going to do that not because I'm not cool, but because we're going to use a filter later. So we'll learn about that in a minute. So, but you do notice I hit the save button and now we're good to go for that channel. So I'm going to close this demo and we'll keep going. Okay, filter channels. So that's what I just mentioned. A filter channel is basically a group of channels and extensions. So it's a higher level of managing your users in groups rather than adding them to channels one by one. So you can still do specific control at the channel level, but if you have a grouping that someone should be in, it's easier to add them once than 5 times. A good example of that is if you have a group of beta users that are always um, doing your beta products, you can add a new beta channel and add that beta channel to your filter, and all your users are automatically in that if they're already in the beta group. Or if you have 10, let's say you have 10 beta products, um, you add a user to the beta filter, and now they're in 10 channels automatically. You don't have to add them one by one to all 10 of those. Here's kind of an idea of what that looks like. You have a couple users in channel A, a couple in B, and a couple in C, but then you also have a few users that are in this filter. The filter is set up for channels A, B, and C, and the result of that is you've got a slightly different set of users in each of these 3 channels that can use those features. 7, 8, and 9, you can see you added them once and they're automatically in A, B, and C. Pretty cool. Okay, so how do we manage filter channels? This looks a little bit different, but you can still use myconfigure.com for that. Who can modify filters? Owners of your extension, user admins, and training admins. And it's on a slightly different page. So if you're already on projects or channels and license, you'll see a button for filters. But yeah, there's at least 2 ways to get to that. I'll show that in a minute. And here's a little bit of what that looks like when you're trying to configure it. You basically drag in what you want to be included in the filter. So right here, I've dragged in the Dematic extension, and you can see it's green because it's an extension. All these purple guys are custom ones that we created to use with code, so we can drag in whichever one of those we want included. The catalog ones we talked about earlier are in the list if I scroll way down. And you can even include other filter channels in here. So yeah, you drag all those in there, give it a nice name, and then you can add email here for the users you want to be in that filter. Okay, we're going to do another demo. This one is about managing users. So we're going to go pick one of the existing channels. So Mike's Cool channel. And I'm going to add myself to there because I'm cool. And then we need to have more than one, just me in there. Otherwise, there's not much of a point of a channel. So I'll put Cody Thompson, a coworker, in here. He'll be happy to know he's cool too, I'm sure. And then when we're done, we'll hit save. Oh, yep, forgot. I gotta remove myself because I'm gonna be using the filter later for that. Okay, I'm gonna do another demo real quick here to show the catalog one. So catalog channel, it's in the same list. These are the ones that were created automatically. You can tell by looking at this list that they say catalog at the end. So we know those ones are cataloged, but they do look a little bit different when you open them up. So I wanted to show it here. This one is for one of our AMR models. And you can see that you don't have a key value pair, and that's because all that stuff is handled for you, whether the user has access to that catalog or not. They just need to be in the list of users. So you'd manage users just like we did for any other type of channel. Since thematic is applied to all, we don't use those, so we don't have any users in that list. Okay, so the next demo I'm going to show here is creating a filter. And like I said, that's on a different page. So you can see up at the top here, there's a filters button. We'll go over there. And right now we don't have any filters other than our extension, and you can see all the users are in there right now. And you can see those color codes on the right of the different types of channels. And I've got a whole bunch of them I made. Cool channel, not cool channel, other cool channel, and a beta channel. So I'm adding the two cool channels to this new filter, and since it's only cool channels in there, we're going to call it the cool filter. And then I am going to add myself as a member of the cool filter. So what that means is I'm not in those channels. However, I'm in the cool filter, so I should get those two channels automatically. And we'll try that out later with some code to show that I'm actually in those, I get those features. Once that filter is made, you can go back to your regular channel page and that filter will show up. And actually, this is an easier way to manage users because the other page doesn't have the IntelliSense of remembering emails you've typed before, but over here it does. And notice that the other page didn't have the save button, but if you're over here, you got to do the save. But yeah, it shows here the list of what's in your filter so you can tell what that is. And you can add your users. It'll actually let you remove some of the channels from there if you wanted as well. I don't dare manipulate it on here. I prefer to go to the other page. We just talked about that. Okay, let's show off some code for this and then we'll do a demo of seeing this thing actually work. So you only need to code if you're doing a custom channel. The catalogs we mentioned are automatically controlled, so you just have to set up the users. And the filters don't need any special code because the code for the channel already handles it. It just works as if you added the users to the channels themselves. So there is some cheater code on the channels and licenses page. If you open the filter, there's a button you can press to get this sample code, and you could actually copy and paste that um, into one of your class files to get started. The basic steps for this are you need a channel callback, and that's going to give you your user profile information. You are going to register that callback with your extension when you initialize your extension, and you're going to check the map that comes back on your channel callback, and that'll give you the list of channels that you're allowed to use. And then you can apply those results to enable and disable features in your extension. Okay, so step one that we mentioned is registering the callback. Here's what that method looks like. It's just got a couple of parameters. And here's an implementation of that in your initialize statement of the extension. So you give it your extension and you give it a callback method. Optionally, you can turn off that invoke. Although I don't know why you'd want to do that, but maybe you don't need your profile data right away. The next step is to implement that callback. So you'd get a map, as I mentioned before. The map will contain your key value pairs that you entered when you created those channels, and then there's also an offline Boolean. So you could theoretically check that offline online status and not modify your restrictions if you're offline or something like that. And what this code basically looks like is I'm grabbing one of the values out of the map. I'm looking for a specific channel here, the admin channel. And if my value is true, that means I must be a member of that channel. So I'm going to turn on this is admin flag. There's a little prefix here that's just a helper piece of text that all of my custom channels will start with. And then whatever results you get back from reading this map, you store it somewhere and use it to drive your UI and features. So let's watch a demo of this in action. Here's where we registered our callback. You can see on the left side there, I traced out what came out of my map. So I'm in 3 channels, the cool channel, the beta channel, and another cool channel. The 2 cool channels are there because I'm in the filter, but the beta one is there because I'm actually in that channel. And then I have all these booleans are just global variables, but do that however you need to for your extension. I grab them all from the map here to set those true or false based on if they're in my map. Some error handling just in case the map didn't come in. And then I just traced them out for the demo purposes so you could see whether we really are in those channels or not. The bottom there is just calling the normal Dematic code. One thing to point out here is the values beta, I'm in cool, true, too cool. Make sure those line up. And again, in my normal production code, these are just true, 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 true for everything. You can do whatever you want. I've never actually seen a channel come in that doesn't have the correct value. It's either in the list or not in the list. So I'm not 100% sure how that could happen, but I'm always checking it to be safe. I did show a line here of attempting to load whether I'm not in a filter. You can't actually do that because there's no key value pair for the filter. So that will be false every time. So we mentioned before what happens really when you're in that filter is you get your two cool channels turned to true instead of um, otherwise you'd have to have a bunch of extra code to check for that filter. And we don't want that. Okay, so to demo this in action now that you've got the data, we can run a quick little dialog here. It's just got a few buttons on it, and based on if those booleans are true or false, we'll get a message to show if we're allowed to use those features or not. So let's try that out a minute. Beta feature, yep, I can use the beta feature. That's because I was in the beta channel. And the cool feature, let's see if I'm there. And sure enough, I am cool. And that was because I'm in the cool filter, not the cool feature channel. Not cool feature. Uh-oh. Luckily, I am not cool, if you can follow that logic. And there is one other cool feature, and again, that's because I'm in the filter. I am able to access the other cool feature. Okay, that is it for how channels themselves work to grant access to various portions of your extension. So the next topic here is related, kind of. It's channel files. So along with these channels, what we can do is store some files. So maybe you have some files that you want to go along with these features, and you only want the users in those channels to have access to those files. So it could be pricing data or something like that, or some images maybe. Who knows? So we'll show you how to do that next. Configure has Amazon AWS servers with where those files get stored. So they would store in a path based on the name of your channel. That way they're kind of separated out from each other. You can use your channel code to determine which ones you want to download, which ones the user has access to. And then you could download individual files if you wanted, or you could just download them all. There's a handy feature in there where the downloader is good at checking if a file changed or not. So you're not downloading everything every single time. So you could do this on demand, maybe when you start up. You could put it in a task and run it every 20 minutes in case your files are changing a lot, or however you need to do it. Maybe when you open a dialog, you could trigger it, download. So to do this, we use this thing called MC overload and request a list of files that are registered with our extension that are on the server. Um, we'll tell it what our package is and how we want to filter for which files we want, which will basically be the folder path of our channel, unless you want less files than that. And then we'll call web method, that's actually a method name, to trigger the request to get started. And it's a web method, so it's asynchronous. You got to wait for the results for that. And when that web request is done, then file list request will be filled in. Here's what that looks like. Um, our Dematic extension is here. Our filter is here, which is just our cool channel name. Then we call the web method, and then so since it's a web method, we're really waiting for this response to be filled in. And I did a little cheat sleep method here. So if it'll just sleep a little while and keep going until it has a result, and eventually I let it time out because otherwise we'd be stuck there forever. And ideally, you could do this on a task instead, and that way it's kind of in the background and you don't have to tie up your UI waiting for this result. But we're not talking about tasks on this presentation, so look those up if you don't know how to use them. So that's for downloading. So we're going to use a response from that file list request to get the list of files that we're going to download. If we want to manipulate that list somehow, we could. So maybe we don't want to download everything for some reason. If you really want to get fancy, you could check that list and compare it to your local folder and delete anything that's no longer on the server. So that's a good way to keep it in sync. And one thing to note about the downloader is it can get finicky if there's too many files. So at the beginning, at Dematic, we had just a few files, but over time that grew to be quite a lot. And the downloader would just fail all the time. So we just do it in batches and manage it that way, and it works much better. Here's what that download code looks like. So we're just collecting those lists of file names, local version of the name, where it's going to go. We create the directory if it doesn't exist, and then the server's URL. And once we have that list, we pass it off to the download files to kick it off. That's basically it. The next step is waiting for the downloads to finish. This is kind of optional because maybe you don't care about waiting for them. It's HTTP in the background, so they'll just finish on their own, and eventually they'll be there. But if you do need to know when they're done, then you can check for and wait for the results, handle any failures, and reset your downloader and file request when you're done to clean it up and be ready for the next time you're going to check for files. Here's what that code looks like. I mentioned that's the web request, so we're grabbing the status here. I put in a couple of traces so you can monitor what's going on. Um, as long as it's active, that means we're still downloading, so we're going to keep going. When it's no longer active, we're done. We might have completed or we might have failed. If it's a fail, you can put some logic in there. And then we just set our values to null to know we finished at the end. We'll demo all of those at once at the end. So our next thing we want to be able to do, you can't really download files unless you have some. So this is how you would add them. There's a ton of code here, so I'm not going to explain it in detail, but if you want to use this, you can look it up in the demo and parse through it. But basically, we're using Cloud Sync, which connects to the Amazon to download the files. So we set up Cloud Sync at the top here, based off of our extension, and it figures out whether we are allowed access to that or not. Otherwise, this would fail. We're passing in our Dematic, custom.dematic, which is our extension. And then the second piece of this, MC file info, we're basically looking up to see the file name that we want to save is already out there or not. It's basically checking for a registered file. And we'll use that information later. Once that's ready, we're going to begin our upload. And again, like the other methods, this is a web request, so we're going to basically loop until it finishes. That's kind of cool because you can display your % done if you want, and this current status. So I put that on a trace so you can watch it as it goes. When it's done, you should fall out of that loop, and if that MC file info that we looked up earlier existed, that means the file was already on the server. So we're just going to update the timestamp of the file and then update our extension file. So that just updates the registration of this file. If it was new, then we'll just add it instead of doing an update. And then there's just a little cleanup at the end to turn off the Cloud Sync if nothing else is using it. Okay, one more method to look at before we see the demo of that. We're going to first initialize our Cloud Sync. Again, just like we did in the last one. Then we're going to delete. We're going to do a begin delete, and again, being a web method, we're going to have our similar style wait code and wait for the status of that to finish. If it was successful, then we're going to call on the MC overlord again and delete the extension file from the registration. And then the last step of cleaning up the Cloud Sync again. That's basically it for it. It's a lot of code to look at, but that's basically a few steps in there. And you can review this demo code that'll be submitted if you want to try using it. Okay, so let's see the demo of that. Since it was a lot of code, we'll show how this works. So in a temp folder, I have a file called demo.txt that I created just so that we could have something to upload. It's just a small text file. Let's go take a quick peek at it. It just says this is a very cool demo. Yes, it is, or at least we hope it will be. So now we're going to go and add that file to the server first since it doesn't exist. So we're going to call that demo save method. I made a little helper method that passes the URL to that guy. And so let's run that now, and it should upload our demo.txt file. And you can see the progress of it that we mentioned earlier, status okay at the end. And you notice that it just went from 0 to 100%, super small file, so yeah, you don't really get much progress. If we did a larger file, you would actually see that the percentages change as it uploaded. And I suppose you could do a fancy UI or something to show that progress. Okay, so our demo file is still there in the folder, you can see, but we don't have anything else in that folder. So now we want to demonstrate what the download of that file would look like. So remember we discussed it's going to go to a folder based on what channel it's in. And this one was in the Cool Demo channel. So let's go to the uploader process here and kick off the download. It's going to make that file list request to start the download and then check for the results at the end to clean it up. And so here we go. Downloading. The status of the web is changing. We got to success. So we should have a file now. Let's go see if it's there. Sure enough, we now have a channel files folder. And if we go inside there, we have a channel, well, a cool channel here to show that it's in that channel. So if we would have had more channels, then we would have had more folders in here with those various files. You could redirect those to wherever you want, actually, if you don't want to have them in that same pattern. There's our demo.txt file from earlier, so that's a good sign, and this is a very cool demo indeed. That looks like the same file that we uploaded earlier, so that's good. So we're going to actually delete those channel files from our drive now because we want to demonstrate deleting the file from the server. So that, let's look for that delete code here, and we're just going to trigger deleting the file. It's going through waiting for the web to reply, which was faster than I could say it. It looks like it finished there, so that's good. Just double checking that we don't have any files on our local path still. And to prove that we actually deleted it, let's go and trigger another download again. And here we go. Waiting for it. And looks like nothing happened, which seems like a good sign. Let's go check our folder and see if we actually downloaded any files or not. And we did not, so we successfully deleted the file. And that's basically it for that demo. We basically added a file, downloaded it, and deleted it, and proved that it was gone. Pretty cool. And again, you would use those methods if your user has access to that channel, so you could decide to call that download method at the time a user logs in and gets his profile data. You could say, hey, download these files. So, and then you could have some other admin utility that saves and deletes files. And guess what? You could have an admin channel that provides access to those features. Okay, and that is basically it for working with channels and channel files and restricting access to various parts of your extension or providing access to features in your extension. Here are some additional documentation on this. Mostly you're going to see the same stuff I showed you on that first link, the official configure documentation. You can search for that right on the website if you like, or you can click the link here from the slides. And then there's a couple other downloader features, you could potentially try instead of using Cloud Sync. I didn't try these to prove if they would work or not, but there's the new catalog downloader, and there's also this background downloads um, that you could try to get some files. So, and here's contact info for me if you have any questions about the demo or about the First Robotics or robotic lawnmowers. Thank you, everyone, and that's it.